Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a retired 27-year veteran of the NYPD, Detective Sergeant Manhattan North Homicide Squad. And if you like things, real crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. With me today is retired NYPD Detective, 21-year veteran, straight out of Brooklyn, Phil Grimaldi. How you doing today, Phil?
Pretty good, Bill, and just as excited as I've been with this case. I'm just eager to dig into it. There's a lot of developments going on, and we're going to go through them.
You know, Phil, obviously, this case is a heartbreaking case, and if you go through the timeline and everything, I mean, many people in the media, even on YouTube, they choose to point fingers at people. And look, there's enough blame to go around, but law enforcement are not mind readers. They apply the law to the situation and they attempt to apply it correctly. It's not always an easy job. I want to point that out. There's also a lot of blame to go on the Northport, Florida Police Department and how they possibly could have let Brian disappear without a trace out of the house, why he was not under surveillance. And that's another, I think that's another problem. I really do. And again, rather than just to focus on that, focus on the bad things, let's focus on some of the good things. We saw the other night that the FBI, based on some input by some civilians, a family, they were able to find Gaby, and they were able to find her remains. And in that same night, they were actually able to make a tentative identification of her. And we don't know specifically what allowed them to make that tentative identification. Was it tattoos? Was it the clothing she was wearing? What was it? Maybe she had identification on her. We know she had very specific tattoos. I think across her forearm, it said "Let it be." But you also have to realize that she may have been out there for 22 to 23 days. So you and I both know what a body looks like after being exposed for 22 to 23 days in the elements. Or she may have just had an identifiable piece of jewelry that was undoubtedly belonged to Gaby Petito. In any event, then to fast forward, I believe it was yesterday that we got the results of the autopsy. And the results of the autopsy simply said that it was a homicide. They didn't tell us what the manner of death was. They didn't say whether it was strangulation, whether it was blunt trauma, whether it was a stab wound, whether it was a gunshot wound. They didn't tell us any of that. And simply the term homicide means death caused by another. And in certain instances, I don't want to put on my professor hat and teach that sometimes a homicide isn't a crime, because that'll just muddy the waters for here, because there can be an accidental death that can be ruled, yeah, that was caused by another, but it's not criminally liable. But anyway, I don't want to get into that now. So we've been there, and one of the things that is very peculiar to all of us, of course, is that Brian drove home from Grand Teton National Park, probably left around the 27th or the 28th, and arrived September 1st without Gaby. And no report was ever made that she was missing. And in fact, 10 days later, her family reported her missing from Blue Point, Long Island. In fact, they reported it to the Suffolk County Police out in Blue Point. So there's a lot of really suspicious activity on this case and things that just break your heart. I mean, some people, of course, in the media said, oh, this could have been prevented if the police would have made an arrest on the 12th. And they can't say that. And we examined that whole car stop. And, some information came in later on about a 911 call that said that he slapped her. We never knew about that. And I don't know if, in fact, that was ever reported to the police on the scene in real time. I don't know if that's true or not. I think that would have changed my opinion on what occurred at the scene had I known that. I didn't know that at the time. But, there's many people that just think police officers have to make 100% the correct, after, 2020 hindsight, that their conduct was wrong because they should have predicted that this was going to happen. Thoughts?
You know, Bill, I want to talk about the three things that I think that you brought up. I'm going to start with the last thing that you said. My information and what I'm reading, I don't think the 911 operator had a conversation or translated the information to the officers on the scene that he was the aggressor striking her. I think that the 911 operator may come under some scrutiny, that she may not have related that to the officers, that the person who called 911 stated that he was striking the female. So that really is important. Like you said, if that information was garnered and before the officers even did the stop, I think they would have went a little harder on Brian and probably drilled down on it. And they probably would have drilled down on it with her. She was obviously very upset. I think that, when they separated them and talked to them individually, they might have been able to get a better idea, a better picture. That information would have been key to an arrest. Now, again, we discussed it and we said that we don't believe that it really played that much of a role because that was on the 12th of August. We believe the time of death is around the 27th of August. So it's a big, long period of time. So I can't really scrutinize the officers at this point based on that information, that we don't think the 911 operator is different. That operator should have transmitted that to the officers, that the 911 caller states that the male was slapping the female. That would have been very important. And I don't think those officers showed a lot of professionalism to me. I don't think if they had gotten that information that they would have acted the way they did. If they had that information and they didn't make an arrest or they didn't drill down on it, well, then maybe there is some scrutiny going towards them. Let's go back to the crime scene that you were talking about first up. The crime scene is so important because where the van was parked, her body was found about 200 yards away. And they say that there was a gravel area, some type of a pond, and then a log where her body was found behind the log. From what I'm understanding, I just watched right before we went on the air, Dr. Michael Baden was on the news, and he said his information, his sources are telling him that the body wasn't hidden under a shallow grave or anything like that. And the reporter that was asking the question says, what does that tell you? He said, the only thing that tells me, and I agree with this, is maybe the person was in a haste. They might have seen something, heard something, a noise, a car driving up or something that spooked them, and they just placed the body down and they took off. However, there was also reports that there was some type of a rock formation into a cross. Now, the other thing I want to talk about before I jump back to you, Bill, we talk about, we could drill down a little more on the crime scene, but there's something that you brought up when you said he left around, we estimate 27, 28, he got back on the 1st. How did he get back? He had to be using a cell phone for navigation. That cell phone is going to be key because that cell phone will show all the area and all the routes that he took when he stopped for gas or he stopped for food or he stopped to go to the bathroom or whatever it is. So that's going to be key in that. And, we're going to drill down on these parents, the Laundrie parents. They were referred to by John Walsh, which was just also on the news just a few minutes ago, as the dirty Laundries. I think that that's a correct description of them because they got a lot to answer for, and we'll get to that later in the show.
You know, I just want to share a little bit to show what's actually happening now. And we're going to put this on the screen. I'm just going to play this.
Why they moved the search area over to the other side of this reserve, but that is where they're focusing their efforts this morning. We just saw crews roll in about over the past 45 minutes. It's been a slow roll in. So the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, their mobile command center, rolled in around 7:15, and then after that we saw ATVs, multiple different law enforcement vehicles following in. So search efforts definitely are close to getting underway this morning. And like you mentioned, Laura, this time investigators are turning their focus to the Venice side of this reserve. Now, over the weekend, investigators scoured the reserve, but search efforts were focused over on the Northport side. They briefly paused their search on Monday, resuming yesterday, this time in Venice on the other side of the reserve. Now, Tuesday, investigators were out in full force once again, utilizing drones, swamp buggies, and dogs to try to pick up any trail on Brian Laundrie, and that's what they plan to do again today. But this is not a small search by any means. Keep in mind, the Carlton Reserve is an extremely large area. It's over 24,000 1,000 acres of heavily wooded and swampy land, a lot of wildlife, including gators and snakes out here. And in typical Florida fashion, the rain that we've been seeing over the past few days is not making investigators' job of looking for Brian any easier.
It's very difficult. Essentially, 75% of it's underwater, and other areas that are dry, we're trying to clear.
Investigators paused their search of the reserve on Monday.
No, could you hold it right there? Could you freeze frame that a second?
Family.
Is it possible to back it up just a little bit? I want to zero in on that. Okay, right there. Oh, right there. Maybe just a notch further so it's a little clearer. Okay. Everybody should take note of that camper. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. That camper is very important. That's a brand new camper. And we'll talk about that in a second if you want to continue it, Bill.
Reserve on Monday, the same day that the FBI conducted a search warrant of the Laundrie family home. At this point, it's unclear as to what Brian's parents have told investigators about Brian's whereabouts or why this search has shifted over to the Venice side of the reserve. But according to Northport police, after their searches yesterday, they said they really didn't find anything to note. Also to mention, Sarasota County Police Office, they tweeted out this morning that they've received multiple calls and emails overnight and into this morning due to rumors that Brian has been found. That is not the case. He has still not been located, and that's exactly why these search efforts are resuming out here today. Like I said, those units rolled in just a few minutes ago, so we're expected to see search efforts beginning once again shortly. Laura.
Okay, all right.
You know, Phil, one of the things that I'm wondering is this just smoke and mirrors? Are they searching this land just to cover their ass? Because I don't think he's anywhere near this place. You know, the timeline is he went hiking on September 14th. All right. And then on the 17th, his parents reported him missing. First of all, in New York City, a missing person does not include someone who's wanted for a crime. Is that a little loose with him? Is he wanted for a crime? I mean, he's sort of wanted, right? So, I mean, is he really missing, or was that a smokescreen delivered by the parents to give him more time to get away?
You know, Bill, there's something rotten in Denmark when it comes to these parents. There's been reports that she may have been in the law enforcement field as a prosecutor or something to that effect. And, you know, right now, I think that they have a lot of questions that need to be answered for sure. As far as the movements from the 14th to the 17th, that may have given him a head start somewhere. I don't know if it's in the location that the investigators were led to, and I'm very skeptical about that. And when I heard about it, that the family said that he went hiking, and then strangely he disappears. He doesn't have any contact with the family, but then they go and they get the car back that he took. They claim he took the Mustang and he went to this location to go hiking. They go retrieve the car, and then they report him missing. Now I believe that car was also taken in for forensic investigation. So there's also talk of the white van when it was recovered by the police and by the FBI, and it was examined for forensic investigation, that may have been cleaned. That's another thing that I think the family has to answer for. And we have some information that was over the news media in the last hour or so about neighbors. And you want to get to that now about that camper, Bill, or you want to stay on this? What we're talking about now?
Just what I just want to say is that from minute one, the parents haven't been cooperative. And of course, as we all know, Brian invoked counsel immediately. So one of the things I think is that, he may have gone to that park, but I think they had plenty of time to plant a car, even not their car. They could have rented a car and put it on the outskirts of the preserve and told him where it was, and he could have just went to a car and he's gone. So I don't know. Look, they have divers in the lakes, and police divers risking their lives in water with alligators and all kinds of stuff. One of the things that we all know is that if a body is submerged in water, it rises to the top in 3 days. In the winter, it can be as much as 5 days, but it rises to the top in 3 days. So this would be way more than 3 days later, unless they have some kind of information. And I don't know how they can have information on this, because look, they're searching. Is the Northport, Florida police embarrassed that they didn't surveil him and they lost him? You bet they are. This is a national story. So could that entail using all these resources to search this area? Yeah, I think it could. And I've been in law enforcement for 27 years, and I've seen, what police departments will do to try to save face. And this could be just that.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of resources, a lot. I mean, helicopters, they shed drones, dogs, people on foot, and then they have those swamp buggies going through that area. It's supposed to be treacherous, filled with snakes and alligators and all of that. I don't know what is making them so certain that he's into that woods. There might be information that we're not privy to, or it could be just what you said, Bill. But, there's a whole scenario because of the fact that he came home on the 1st. Now, I'm going to talk about the neighbors that were just interviewed. I listened to this interview. It was about within the last hour. Charlene and William Guntry that lived directly across the street from the Dirty Laundries. And they said that after he returned home on the 1st, within about a week to a week and a half, that they purchased a camper. And we saw the video that you just showed. The camper was there. They said it's a brand new camper. And when they saw the new camper, they saw the mom, the dad, and they saw Brian as well, all working on this camper, loading it up with material. They just assumed they were going on a camping trip. And then they said on the weekend, they did leave. All three of them left. They attached it to a pickup truck and they took off, and they were gone for 3 days, and then they returned. So they just assumed it was a camping trip. But what it may have been. Now, don't forget, this is September the 1st. He's back. This is a week to a week and a half. So the timeline would put it right before or right around the time that she was reported missing. Now, they invoked counsel. They may have gone into some area with this camper, and they maybe were going to plant it somewhere, but they decided to just hide food and supplies that he could hide in the woods. I don't know. There's definitely a lot of questions, and I think that the investigation needs to focus on the Dirty Laundries, Brian's parents. Go through their cell phone records. Go through, you and I talked about it earlier, that their bank records, transactions, credit card receipts. There's a whole wealth of information on what their movements were in this past 2 or 3 weeks. That's, I think, the focus of this investigation should be, and you will lead to Brian for sure.
Well, Phil, I agree. They should be checking the parents' financial records. They should be tracking almost in real time their credit cards, their debit cards, TransUnion, where they send money to another location. Obviously, cell phone records, calls going in and out. What other? There's some databases that and I believe when I was on the police department, they had a thing called AutoTrack, which is called Faces of the Nation, and you could find out things about a person that you had no idea, like every single house they've ever owned, every vehicle they've ever owned, relatives, businesses they own, licenses they own. So if the Laundries do own a second or third home, they can pull that up on a computer check. And those are the places that, you got to get the fugitive enforcement team involved in this. There's a federal fugitive enforcement team. These guys are professionals. They're outstanding in searching for people. They search for people internationally, and they're so good at their job. I think that they got to be on board. And of course, you have to use the power of the criminal justice system, which means subpoenas, search warrants, all of the above. And on electronic devices, look, they pulled in the computers. They're going through the computers with a fine-tooth comb, all of the cell phone information. And believe it or not, the cell phone information can take a lot of time to get back. It just doesn't fly back in. So, and then you marry that information with the information you currently have.
Bill, I'm glad you brought up the point about the cell phones, because if he is still alive, which initially I was saying he probably offed himself when they said he went into the woods and he hadn't been heard from, I was thinking maybe he offed himself. It's still a possibility. I'm leaning the other way now. I think he's on the run. He's got to be communicating with his mother and father. And the mother's name, I believe, is Roberta. And I'm going to appeal to Roberta as a mother. You're the mother of your son. You're a mother. You're a mom. Gaby has parents as well. And think about her mom. And this has got to end. This kid needs to be brought to justice and found. They may be using burner phones. the FBI is probably on top of that too. And there's ways to figure out if burner phones are being used, and it's, you know, if they know their location where they are, the house, they could tell if a phone is being used or if there's transmissions going through a phone. But they have a lot of explaining to do. My opinion, they're going to wind up being criminally charged in this thing down the line. When they figure out that they were helping him on his escape, or, you know, him trying to, you know, elude the police and the FBI, they're going to be facing criminal charges. You're better off sooner rather than later to start to cooperate, convince your son to come back, let him turn himself in, and let the investigation go where it's going to go. They're going to put themselves in a trick bag for some serious felony charges. I really believe that at this point. If this kid is still alive and he's on the run, that's what they're doing right now.
100%. Jamie, thank you for the $5 super chat. What about traffic cameras? Can they look to see where the family went with the camper? Can they see where the parents' phones pinged at that time? 100%, Jamie. But, you know, all of this
Great
stuff,
comment.
all of this camera stuff, all of the surveillance, it all takes time. You can't just get it immediately. I think a traffic camera, you could probably get the Department of Traffic to upload it for you. But usually those cameras aren't that crystal clear. You know, get a red light camera. Yeah, it'll take a picture of your damn plate from 1,000 yards. It'll be
that's clear.
Yeah, because they want the damn money. But, you know, as far as identifying people in the vehicle, it's not good at that. But yeah, law enforcement has all of these tools at their disposal. I mean, we gotta, in a case like this, think outside the box. Think of, you know, I mean, this is a long time. The 14th, you're talking about, it's 8 days ago. That's when he went for his little hike. Did it make sense that he was going for a hike during, you know, his fiance, well, he knows if in fact he did it, he knows she's dead. You know, but does that make sense, going on a hike? I don't think it does.
There's a smoke screen right there that's being put up, Bill. You and I recognized it right away. It sounds like nonsense. Jamie's comment, I just want to say one other thing. That's a great point, because I would like to look at the cell phone activity of the parents, where they were in this 3-day weekend that they went on, and the neighbors, Charlene and William Gunther, they were asked if they thought it was unusual that they went on this 3-day excursion. And the wife, I believe it was, that said, yeah, I think it is kind of strange that a 23-year-old boy would go with his mom and dad on a weekend in this small little sleeper camper. So even they thought that there was something suspicious about that. Look at their cell phone records, and you're going to come up with movements, and that might put you in the direction of where they were with this camper, and that might lead you right to Brian.
Linda Key, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm Bill Cannon, and with Phil Grimaldi, we're giving you a police perspective to this case. Phil and I have investigated hundreds of cases, many high-profile missing person, homicide cases, and we're just giving you the benefit of our knowledge on this. We're in no way are we soothsayers or that we can predict things, but we've been through these type of investigations. And some of the things on this investigation, you know, how you have to think, and this is how detectives solve crimes, is you talk to each other. And I've said it numerous times before, you hypothesize and you theorize, and then you typerize your reports. But I use that joke so many times, it's getting tired. People are going to say, stop using that joke. But that is really how crimes get solved, is detectives talk to each other, and they come up with a scenario of what may or may not have happened. Amin Umalak, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. Folks, if you're not subscribed to Police Off the Cuff, please go on our YouTube, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. Our channel is growing by leaps and bounds, and with a lot of help from a lot of people. Duty Ron is one of our biggest benefactors, Joe Murray and his girlfriend, Angie Ang. You guys, thank you so much for contributing to this Police Off the Cuff family. Our YouTube channel members, thank you guys. We really appreciate you guys. And we're going to be staying with this case, but this case is so heartbreaking in so many ways, you know. And we look at all the legal aspects. We tried to bring you Miss Manda, thank you guys for help keeping me updated, watching from San Francisco, California. Hello, California. So great to see you guys. We're trying to bring in legal experts. I brought in Barbara Butcher, who was a former chief of staff of the New York City office of the chief medical examiner. She's a brilliant woman. We're trying to bring in good backup people that know the law, that have an area of expertise. That, look, we can't know everything, and neither can anyone else. And a lot of times when you hear these talking heads on television, you shake your head and say, where did they get that from? But in any event, we're going to stay with this, and it's a very interesting case. But sometimes you just have to use common sense. Does any of this make sense that Brian just split to go hiking? I don't think so.
Bill, I got to tell you, I want to ask you a question. Since we've been doing this case, and since we've been doing police off the cuff, real crime stories, you start to get into these cases. Now, when I was an active homicide investigator, and I'd be working a case sometimes 12, 15 hours, and I would go home and lay my head on the pillow to go to sleep, try and catch a little rest. And I'd be playing all the things that we did in my head. And that's been happening with this case. I feel personally attached to it in a way that I really want to help as much as I can. And I think in the beginning, when we started profiling this case, we asked people to, if you see something, say something, which that wound up being a very pivotal point of the case when those two other travelers and they spotted the van. That was very important to finding Gaby's remains. But are you getting the same thing? Are you like thinking about this day and night because you're so you're so interested in it, or you're so invested in it? You feel that, Bill?
Phil, I am, and I was very guilty of that when I was a homicide sergeant. I would take the cases home with me, and I had a hard time sometimes communicating with my family because my mind, I wanted to be back at work. There's that old expression, when you're at work, you want to be home, and when you're home, you want it to be at work, especially with a high-profile case that I was deeply invested in. I felt so passionate that I wanted to be at work and get justice for the deceased.
That basically explains what I was just trying to say, Bill. It's just really unbelievable. And listen, any homicide case, when you're the case detective or you're working on it as the supervisor or whatever it is, when you're, whoever's working on the case, you're always invested in the case. You always feel close to it. But specifically with a young woman that's killed and an innocent person, that really makes you go the extra mile. When it's a child or a young girl like Gaby is, or an elderly person that's kind of defenseless and helpless. Look, I've investigated murders of drug dealers and organized crime figures that may have, people might say, oh, they deserved it. It's still a homicide investigation. They still had family members that we try to get justice for. And we were invested in the case just like we were in any other case. But it's like with something like this, it really touches your heartstrings and you feel for that family. And you know that the Dirty Laundries, I'm going to refer to them as, again, I'm stealing it from John Walsh. I think it's a great title for them. They need to start cooperating. They need to get to the bottom of this. Let's find the kid, Brian, and let's find out, what his involvement was. We're going to have a lot of information going forward from the autopsy, the crime scene investigation, the cell phones, all the things that we talked about. And we're going to get to the bottom of this. There's going to be, I could see there's going to be a trial on this case one day for sure.
Phil, I just want to, I'm so thankful to that family, the Red, White, and Bethunes. And I just want to show that video again, because these people are just incredible people. And they're the ones that found
August 27th.
Let's just watch this.
2021. We got camera footage going through the Grand Tetons Park around 6 to 6:30 p.m.
This is at the Spread Creek dispersed camping area. We got there and there was a huge gravel lot, and we decided we wanted to try to drive more toward the back because we had heard the views were better back there. So we were heading back on this long dirt gravel road.
And we came across a white van that had Florida plates, a small white van. We were going to stop and say hi because we're from Florida too, but the van was completely dark. There was nobody there, so we decided to continue on our way.
Yeah, the van looked like it was pretty much kind of abandoned. We figured maybe they were out hiking or they were just chilling inside. There was no doors open. It was just kind of, neat to see a Florida plate, on the other side of the country. It's not something you see all the time.
But we wanted to include this in the video just in any way that we can help and get this out there to be able to find Gaby Petito. So if you could share it, if you know anything, please don't hesitate.
Yeah, as we're coming up on it, we're approaching it up here on the left-hand side. This is most definitely Gaby Petito's Ford Transit van. It's kind of wild, like it's saying a little bit, because we drove past. We actually weren't able to find any sites, and we ended up driving back through, saw it again, but here it is on the left. So,
and I slowed it down so you can possibly see it a little.
Well, you know, there you can see the hat. And on Duty Ron's show last night, our good buddy Duty Ron, retired NYPD detective, he showed the slowed down version that was someone else had edited it to just show it in a super slow thing. And it showed that the van door was opened and it closed. And it appeared to be that there was someone out there. And on the ground, there was, you could see, I don't know if you can see you can't see my arrow there.
Yeah.
There are sandals right there. And they were saying that those are Gaby's sandals. So this was the 27th of September. And a lot of people make the assessment or the prediction that may have been the day that she was killed.
Better.
kind of freaky for a late Saturday evening, but we just kind of had a brain fart.
And you see the hat that's in the front dashboard of the van, and that was seen also on the car stop on August 12th by the Body One video, the officers, the Moab.
Billy, when you a little back further on the video, you could see to the left on the open area that they talk about there's like a creek or some type of a pond. And then I believe the body was found on the other side of that, like 200 yards away. So that's something good that we saw in that video too. It kind of gives you an idea of the crime scene.
So you're talking about that maybe it was about 250 yards from this van.
Right. I believe it looks like it could be to the left of that van, because that's when the video backed up a little bit, as they were approaching the van, you can see a wide open area. It looked like it could have been the pond that they were talking about. And then the body was beyond that. So I'm glad you brought up Duty Ron's show, Bill, because he had crime scene investigator, retired NYPD detective Ed Wallace, who I know personally. We worked together many years ago in the 70 precinct in Brooklyn. And he brought up some great points. So if you want to let that play in, and we'll talk about the crime scene again.
Yeah, I'm going to remove it now. I just wanted to really send out kudos to Kyle and Jen Bethune.
Yes.
Because we've said it a million times to it being ad nauseum, but if you see something, say something. And obviously these folks did. And look, they wound up being able to recover Gaby. And that, I mean, in this case, that is obviously the largest breakthrough that we've had so far, which is just tremendous. Yeah,
you know, in the area where this body was found, had that video not been transmitted and given to law enforcement and they focused the search, there's a possibility her body may have never been found, or may have been found, you know, a very long time from now. So yes, that family, they did a great thing. They're like heroes in our eyes as far as law enforcement goes, because they seen something, they said something, and it really was a pivotal point of the whole investigation. Going back to the crime scene, right out of the gate yesterday when Detective Eddie Wallace was on Duty Ron show, he brought up a point about, and he called it footwear impressions. Now, I think what he was trying to get at is if Brian was carrying her from that van, the weight of his body as well as her body, the impressions may have really been deep into the ground, and there could have been footwear impressions that crime scene investigators could have taken plaster cast of and compared to footwear that Brian may have in his home, or maybe if he's captured, that he may have, and a comparison can be done, and that would place him at the specific crime scene. I think that's a great piece of evidence. I wouldn't consider it circumstantial evidence, because if the body is found and his footprint is there, that would mean that he was at the scene, you know? So,
you know, Phil, could I just stop you one?
Sure.
And that's a great point. There's something in crime scene, the science of crime scene is called individual characteristics and class characteristics. And I'm going to explain what that is. If you own a pair of Adidas sneakers, and it's a certain brand, they all have the same bottom.
Right. I know where you're going.
But Phil Grimaldi wears his sneakers a certain way where the left heel wears out before anything else. That's called an individual characteristic. And that
Right.
footprint will be different on the ground, on soft ground, than someone else that has the same exact sneakers. There may be even indentations on the sole of your sneakers that will positively identify them as your sneakers. So that's called an individual characteristic, and the other thing is called the class characteristic. I'm glad I taught criminal justice a few years ago.
No, Billy.
Still
Billy,
remember it.
You really brought up a great point, because Nike makes 100 million pairs of sneakers. So a defense attorney in a trial will say, well, there's 100 other million pairs of that same sneaker, but maybe I stepped on a piece of glass or a pebble got in my shoe, and that imprint is going to show up. And now they recover the shoe that I was wearing, and the comparison is going to say, no, this is not like the other 100 million pairs. This is a specific marking. It has a specific pattern. He may have stepped on a nail or a piece of glass or a rock or whatever it is. Like you said, my it's funny you said that, because my shoes tend to wear out on my right heel. You said left, but on my right heel, they tend to, maybe it's the way I walk or whatever. So that pattern, if that pattern is picked up at the crime scene, that's going to be, I wish we had Joe Murray here to really debate it, but later on down in the trial, when that's submitted into evidence, I'm sure a defense attorney is going to challenge it, and a good crime scene investigator is going to say, no, we have the shoes recovered from the defendant and the pattern matches, and the reason it matches is because, and he would go through all of those things. Great point. See, you're a professor skills and teaching crime scene came.
Yeah, I could still use them
right?
even though I'm not teaching anymore. I could still pull some information out of the archives every once in a while. Folks, we're going to go a short commercial break, and we'll be right back. It'll take maybe 2 minutes.
Joe Murray, attorney at law. So glad Joe's back and healthy and back on the show. Have you found yourself in a jam? Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York City area? Do you need a victim's advocate? Well, Joe Murray is your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he also is a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. His website is jmurray-law.com, jmurray-law.com, and his telephone number is 646-838-1702. That's 646-838-1702. His email is joe@jmurray-law.com, joe@jmurray-law.com. Joe knows both sides of the fence in the criminal justice area.
Maxine Pillar, thank you so much for the $8.99 super chat. She says, good evening, Bill and Phil. Keep up the good work. You're both such an inspiration in all that you do and the time you spend getting to the core of these sensitive cases. Sending love from the UK. GB, thank you. The UK, Great Britain. Thank you, Maxine Pillar. That's very much appreciated. And you inspire us by praising us in that way. Let me just get to this quick coffee commercial. Police Coffee is an officer-owned business dedicated to crafting the finest coffees and blends. Police Coffee will provide you with the freshest coffee available. Each batch is roasted fresh by people who know what it means to stay vigilant. And our specialty coffees do not waste one drop when flavor is concerned. Our coffee is some of the best you'll find, but it also helps serve an important cause, giving back to our community. 50% of our profits goes towards helping family members of police officers who fell in the line of duty. To order coffee and related products from policecoffee.com, go to the website. There are over 7 types of coffee to choose from. 50% of the profits go to officers' families in need. For a 10% discount, use code OFFTHECUFF10. Phil, I one of the things that, of course, we're thinking of now, when the autopsy results totally come back and they determine how, in fact, they already ruled that it's a homicide, which I explained before means death caused by another. That's the definition of homicide. However, now they will come back with the manner of death, the cause of death, the cause of death. Was she strangled? Was she a victim of blunt trauma? Was she stabbed? Or was there a gunshot wound? We don't know specifically. Another part B of that is there's something called toxicology, which they will do. They'll test the blood and do numerous tests on it and find out what was inside the body at the time. As Dr. Michael Bodden said also, is that they'll empty the contents of the stomach. to find out, can that give us a time frame of
Very
when
good
she,
point.
of when she died based on the contents of her stomach? And he could explain that better because he's a pathologist, how long it takes to digest potatoes, how long it takes to digest meat. And that is another determining factor in time of death.
So glad you brought that up, Bill, because that's another thing that was just revealed on the news shortly before we went on the air, that they have witnesses in a restaurant around the 27th, I think they said 25th to the 27th, that Brian was in a restaurant. He was arguing with an employee of the restaurant, and he became irrational. They said he was acting very odd and weird. Now, the reason I bring that up is this. Let's say they were in that restaurant. His behavior was completely out of control, violent, arguing, whatever it was. Now, if they look at the contents of her stomach, and it is that meal that they last ate, because when they empty the contents of the stomach, they can tell what kind of food it is generally. They can get an idea of meat, potatoes, like you said. They can also put a time frame on how long before the person consumed that food that they were killed, that they died. So let's say, I'm just going to use an arbitrary day of the week. Let's say it was Wednesday at 8 p.m. They were in the restaurant, and there was this argument or a fight where he was acting irrational. And the coroner can say, well, the food is meat and potatoes, and they match it up to that restaurant's meat and potatoes. And they believe that within a 3 or 4 hour period, that's how long it was that she consumed the food before the time that she died. So now you have a really narrow window when you think the murder may have taken place, and you have something that can be brought out in court. We believe that the murder took place at this time, on this date, because of the contents of her stomach. And we know for a fact, based on the person that Brian was arguing with, that he was acting irrational. Maybe there's a video camera in there. These are all pieces of evidence that could be brought out at a trial and show that he's responsible for the demise of Gaby Petito.
Phil, that's brilliant. And some of the folks in the chat, there's some really great. Well, here's a great little question. Mamachi9. My question is, why are there so many criminal sympathizers on YouTube? I've noticed that every time an evil person kills someone else, there's a side of YouTube that jumps on the evil sympathizer train. Mamachi9, I'm glad you brought that up, but that's because we live in a country where everyone is presumed innocent, the presumption of innocence. And it's much easier to prove someone, to prove someone guilty than it is to try to prove yourself innocent. Imagine that you had to prove that you were innocent rather than the prosecutor had to show that you were guilty. So that's one of the reasons I think people also see the police sometimes as the villains. They see the criminal justice system as the villains. But then when a situation like this happens, where a beautiful girl apparently is murdered by her fiance, it just pulls at all of our heartstrings. And in fact, this case is famous now, is infamous all over the world right now, not just in the United States. And, we're looking some of the pictures, the Florida law enforcement that are searching that park right now. And this case, there's the parents of Brian Laundrie. Just think of the man hours and these are the folks that they saw something and they said something.
That's the Bethunes.
Kyle and Jen Bethune, and I believe they have 3 kids. Their son, who was 7 years old, died 10 years ago in a car accident. Can you imagine the heartbreak of that? There's a very close, great American family, as you would say.
That's an ironic thing that people who lost a child are now helping to find another set of parents that lost a child. They were really so important to this investigation. I think it's just ironic, though.
Yeah, it's sort of heartbreaking. I want to show this picture. This is the senior FBI agent in charge that had to give the press conference the other night and, in fact, tell everyone that the body that they had recovered, they tentatively identified as Gaby Petito. And you could see that he's quite upset. So you can see that law enforcement takes this personally, and it's very difficult in situations like this not to bring this home with you. And it was heartbreaking to hear him present at the press conference that they had in fact recovered Gaby Petito.
Bill, I just want to expand on that just for a second. Like when the first picture you put up was Gaby and Brian. And, as a detective, when you go into a thing like this, it starts out as a missing person case. The first thing is the family give us a picture, and you pull up a picture, and, it starts to stay with you. It starts to haunt you. Now you go home at night and you see your children, or you see other people in your family, or you see people around you, and it reminds you of this. And this is how you get invested in one of these cases. And you want to really do your best. You want to make that extra effort to try and find. I mean, we were hoping and praying she was going to be found alive. That would have been fantastic. Unfortunately, it just wasn't to be. And now we just want justice for Gaby. We want justice for her family. And we want the Laundries to cooperate. Their culpability, as days go on, they're getting more and more deeper into this case. And it's just it's really not looking good for them. And I think we started out this show saying the focus needs to be on them. Let's talk to them. Let's follow them. Let's look into them. It's going to lead us to Brian. And I can't even say it enough about the mom, Roberta. You're a mom. Gaby's mom is a mom, and they don't have their daughter anymore. You're going to have your son if he's alive. It's time to just do the right thing. I mean, as a parent, I get it. If one of my children did something horrific, I would try to help them the best I could. But at some point, if they took a life of an innocent girl like Gaby, I would have to draw the line and say, listen, the time has come that you're going to have to be accountable for your actions. And I'm still going to have my child if my child did this horrible thing. I may be visiting them in jail, but I'll still have them. And that's something for these people to think about.
Catherine Mooney in the chat says, how come we haven't heard from Brian's lawyer? Because he has nothing to say. He was supposed to hold a press conference. I believe it was yesterday. It was canceled. Now, if like Phil and I believe is that the family is aiding and abetting him and getting away, the lawyer is just not going to say anything. Lawyers, they're held up to a standard, believe it or not, and they have to adhere to the bar association of the state they're in. And if they do something that is viewed as misconduct, they can lose their law license. So I don't know if that had anything to do with him calling us off the press conference. Do lawyers regularly lie? I won't even answer that because I can hear you guys in the chat laughing as I just said that.
You know what, Bill? There's an ethical part of it too that he's got a law practice. This is a high-profile case. Him taking it on is going to be beneficial to him down the line. And I don't think he wants to be viewed as this horrible person that was defending obvious murderer. So, or going along with the family did when it's revealed that the family, may have aided and abetted him. He may want to take a step back now and say, you know what, I still have to practice law in this town, in this area. And, maybe that's why he canceled the press conference. Cause I don't think anything good was going to come out of that press conference for his benefit or for his client's benefit. It was probably just going to be bad, actually, because there would have been questions. And if you walk away from a microphone without asking questions, that's a bad look. And if you answer questions and the answers don't come out good, that's a bad look. So he must have said, you know what, there's nothing to be gained by doing a press conference, and they pulled back. That's my opinion. I could be right. I could be wrong.
Jay Erickson in the chat, I understand Gaby sympathizes, not Brian's. If you have a mom or a sister, you cannot support a murderer, but that's just me. I'm not a sociopath. Thank you for your comment, Jay Erickson. So the obvious answer is where do we go to now? And where we go to now is to keep investigating this. And as I said, that unit, fugitive enforcement, they should be on this case. They should have been on it a week ago, but they should be on this case, full 100%. These guys are brilliant at their job. They have tools that they use that we don't, and regular law enforcement don't have out there full force. And, we're talking about the whole weight of the criminal justice system, search warrants, telephone, eavesdropping warrants, all of the above to find this guy.
You know, Bill, again, going back to the fact that they let this kid slip out of where he was at his mom's house and there was no surveillance being conducted. We talked about it could have been possible lack of manpower or something, but they should have enlisted either the United States Marshals, somebody with some manpower to just, get around the clock surveillance on this kid, because it was obvious she was missing. He was responsible for her last known whereabouts, and the two were going to eventually, hook up. The fact that he was the last one to see her alive, and they should have had eyes on him. There's no question about that. Going back to what you said earlier, I guess one of the people that in the chat said about how it seems like people are being forgiving and like that on YouTube and on the podcast. Listen, the United States of America is a very forgiving country. It's just that's the way we like to forgive people for mistakes that they made, and it's in the Bible that you're supposed to be. We're not perfect. We're allowed to make mistakes. This is obviously not a mistake. It's a horrible crime and a tragedy, but I think that's the general feeling of people throughout the country. They may want to err on the side of caution. And listen, I am 100% in favor of no one who's innocent being charged with a crime and being found guilty and going to jail. I am not for that in any way, shape, or form. Every detective that I ever worked with, every police officer I ever worked with, we would never be able to put your head on the pillow at night knowing that you arrested somebody that didn't do it knowingly. There are cases where it happens at times, and but knowingly, if you do that, you should hang up your shield. You shouldn't be in law enforcement. And I don't think that anybody that's innocent should go to jail.
Jackie S., thank you so much for the $15 super chat. And I want to just say I'm so sorry about what you're going through. I lost my daughter to murder. This club sucks. Oh, my God. No justice is a stab in the back. They will always refer to before Gaby and after Gaby. It's been 4 years, not one call from the detective. Jackie, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I can't even imagine what that's like. I mean, I know that myself. I was in homicide for 10 years. We had great respect for the victims and the victims' families, and I would never do what you're describing right there. I would always try to stay in contact with the family. It's that's a horrible thing. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Jackie, I have to echo those words. That's a terrible thing. And wherever you are in the country, you should be, I would start making some phone calls and reach out. I've been on cases where, sometimes things just aren't happening. The person who did it isn't brought to justice, and you kind of hit a brick wall. And I can think of a specific case where a 19-year-old college student was stabbed in the heart over nothing. And we used to talk with the family once a week. The father would come in and we'd say, listen, this is what we're doing. There really wasn't a lot of updates, but he was comforted by the fact that we would meet with him once a week and say, all right, this is what we're hoping for. Eventually, it took about a year. On America's Most Wanted, we profiled that case, and the guy was brought to justice who committed the homicide. But the point being, the detective on that case or somebody from that office should be in contact with you in a time to time. Would you agree with that, Bill? I mean, isn't that one?
No, 100% of the time, you should probably be calling her at least, once every month or every 2 or 3 months. But you can't just let people, she lost her daughter. I mean, you have to, feel for her, and you have to, keep her abreast, even if there's nothing happening. Cases do go cold.
Sure.
And, in this day and age, though, there's always a chance. But with the technology, with what we have, DNA, with those family trees now that are Ancestry.com, it's just amazing some of the stuff that happens. D-Rock, thank you for the $5 super chat. Then a police search in such vast area. How does law enforcement combat someone backtracking to an area already searched? Well, that can happen. The way you would do that is you would do a zone search or a spiral search or a quadrant search. And yes, that can happen, especially what if someone is in the military, or they're trained in the military, or someone is just a Bear Grylls type, someone that is a survivalist. They definitely will have it over the police. That's for sure.
I just want to back up a little bit. I want to make a comment about that last comment. But Jackie, if you contact your local police and you don't get any satisfaction, try and email us. If we could help you out, we'll make a phone call for you and perhaps maybe get you back on track with the detective on that case. Regarding that search comment that you just had up, Bill, listen, sometimes you can search an area. You could step right over an important piece of evidence without realizing it. So double and triple searching, I don't think is a problem. And I've heard of cases where they searched an area for a missing person, a kid one time, I can remember a case, and they didn't find it. They went back and then they found who it was they were looking for on a secondary search.
Someone had earlier on had said something about, in time of death etymology, which is the insects on a body. And you're 100% right. That can also be a determinant of time of death. Especially, I don't want to get into it so much, but with maggots, they take, I think, like 2 to 3 days to go from birth to full. And I mean, that's one of the time frames that pathologists and medical legal investigators use on determining time of death. In this case, when the body was out there, probably in excess of 22 days, determining time of death by science is a little bit more difficult. They can give you a roundabout time, but they cannot pinpoint time. And I almost wish I had Barbara Butcher on the telephone. I could just pull her up and she would explain that in a scientific way.
Sure. Weather patterns would be taken into consideration as well. If we believe the body was out there for 2 weeks, they may look at how much rain there was, snow, cold temperature, hot temperatures. They would definitely use that as a formula to figure out time of death, how long the body was decomposing and stuff like that. So all of these factors, obviously Barbara Butcher, a real expert in the field, would have a better explanation of that. But the crime scene itself, the examination when the body was found, and the autopsy, that's going to yield a lot of information on how, when, and what means Gaby succumbed to her death.
Well, Phil, someone also mentioned in the chat before, was this crime premeditated or was it a crime of passion?
Yeah, well, to me, I'm leaning towards a crime of passion based on the volatile relationship that appears to have been going on. I mean, we had the August 12th interaction with the police after a dispute between the two of them. And now we're talking about at least 1 or 2 incidents where there were people that saw them arguing. There was the restaurant that I just quoted, which was around the time that we believe she was murdered, where he was acting in an odd fashion, arguing with an employee of a restaurant. So, I mean, listen, it sounds like things may have accelerated, domestic violence type situation, violence, hitting each other or him hitting her, and, maybe possessive control. Friends of Gaby made statements that he was, constantly monitoring her movements and whereabouts and, exhibiting possessive. Obviously, he's exhibiting violent behavior, but there was also this possessive behavior. These are all the components in domestic violence situations and possibly a domestic violence death.
Diane Morelli, so since they're searching for Brian in that reserve area, is it that the FBI doesn't have any information that he fled? The parents are lying. Do they really think he's still there? I would think that they have some information that he fled into there, but I mean, he left on the 14th of September. What are the chances that he's still in there? I don't know. Maybe they have some information. Are there deer cameras, there hunting cameras out there? Did someone spot him in the woods? We can't answer that. But that's
I would hope, Bill, that there is something other than just the parents' word that they're in, focusing the search in that area with all these resources. I would really hope that, because if it's not, that would be shameful that they could have been led on a wild goose chase. But my instincts are telling me that there's got to be something, maybe a cell phone pinged or something to that effect, or somebody saw him in the area. It's got to be something, Bill. I don't know. If it's not, they're going to have egg on their face again. It'll be the second.
Here's another outstanding question from the chat. Colby Cat. Can the police track flights to see if he flew out of the state or the country? Yes, it's not as easy as you might think, but you can also put a hold on his name with all the airlines, and you could put like it's almost like a flag. Someone using his name tries to buy a ticket, it's flagged, the police come and they grab him. But what if he has fake ID? To leave the country, as you know, he'd need his passport. But this could have been premeditated, and he could have all of that stuff with him.
Yeah, listen, if he did fly, if he used his own ID, I mean, you know, they check IDs at airports since 9/11 pretty, they're scrutinized pretty well. There would definitely be a way to check that and find out. There would be a record of it if he flew. So I'm sure they're looking into that. But yeah, it seems like they're pretty confident he's in this area. Maybe that camper that we talked about with the neighbors that sort of them go on a trip. Maybe that's the reason that they're in that area too. I quoted this the last show we did yesterday and the day before, actually. He had to have a good supply of food. You can't live off of tree bark and bugs in the wilderness for this long. So, and then with all the things that are going on in that area with alligators, snakes, and wild boar, and all insects and animals, he's going to turn up sooner or later if he is in that area.
Navy F-14D says police put divers in the water today. You would wonder, why would they risk the lives of police officers doing this? Why can't they do it with sonar, submerged sonar? I mean, there's alligators and all kinds of manner of wildlife in these lakes. And if this guy is in fact in the lake, he would pop up in 3 days. That's why, if you guys don't know, a body that gets submerged usually sinks straight down. I didn't know that till I asked our harbor guys that one time. And after about 3 days, the gases build up in the body. And it rises to the surface, and that's why it gets the name floater. And a body on a river is called a floater because it floats to the top and it floats down the river.
Maybe there's reason to look. The divers could be looking for evidence too. Maybe they feel he may have tossed a weapon in there. I don't know. Another scenario, Bill and I, we talked about it before we went on the air. It could be the possibility that an alligator grabbed him and brought him into the water, which is what alligators do. If they go on land and they grab prey, they take it back into the water to drown it. So who knows? It could be any number of those things that we just mentioned. Evidence. It could be looking for him. And you're right, though. I don't know if I'd be putting divers in the water if there's alligators supposedly in the area.
A penny for your podcast. I love that name. Considering the FBI had probable cause to get a search warrant on the home, you think they were able to get a warrant to tap the home phone line? I think they could. Yes, I think you'd have to present. You'd have to present the facts to a judge, and I think absolutely they could. Oh, by the way, Penny, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Very appreciated. You guys in the chat, you asked some great questions today. And it's our privilege and our pleasure to answer them if we know the answer. We don't know the answer to everything. And I can't believe that Joe Murray's in the chat. Doesn't that guy ever work? Isn't he an attorney? He's like living on this.
I love
him too. But I'm laughing. He's a huge fan and a huge supporter of the show, and I love to see him in the chat. And I'm like, if when I die, I hope I come back one day as a lawyer and work in the office of Murray, and Murray.
Bill, there's one of the comments from Patty Cake, and this is kind of interesting. She says the dirty laundries probably threw Brian's backpack in the swamp to throw off law enforcement. That's also a good possibility. I mean, anything's possible at this point. And look, I said it before. I get parents trying to protect their child or trying to help their child, but now they're going to be crossing over into a possibility, the arena of criminal charges, culpability for aiding and abetting. I mean, there's no way that this is going to go away for the family, for Brian. It's deeper and deeper and deeper. They probably would be doing themselves a justice where, they're going to have to move on. If he's captured alive and he's eventually charged and he's in jail and a trial and all of that, they may want to do some PR for themselves now that they're going to be, they may have to move out of Florida because people are going to be looking at them and spitting on the ground. It's terrible. And I don't want anybody to try and do anything harmful to them. I'm not indicating that. I'm not, looking for anybody to do anything like that. But I just think that they better think long and hard about their actions moving forward from this minute, from right now. I mean, I could have said that a couple of days ago as well, or even a week ago, but they really got to think about their future going forward as well as Brian's.
Brenna Hatch, what if they never find Brian? At what point do they quit searching? Never. There is no statute of limitations for murder. And if he doesn't appear within the next, couple of months, 6 months, year, at any point he could be arrested if they obtain probable cause that he did this. He can be arrested at any time. There's no statute of limitations for murder.
Bill, I'm glad that question was asked because, let's say he's not found and it goes on for a few weeks. There's going to be a lot of things happening regarding the investigation, the results of the autopsy, the toxicology, the crime scene investigation of the vehicles, the crime scene investigation in the home, the crime scene at the scene. Maybe all of these things will be put together and there'll be enough evidence to go to a grand jury and say, we believe this guy's responsible for it. They get an arrest warrant and he'll be named as a suspect 100% then, which they may be at that point now. Don't forget the prosecutor's office is going to be involved in this. They're going to be examining all the interviews, the videos, the cell phone information. It's a lot of work that's going into this case. And I'm sure at some point they're going to put it all together. They'll produce it to a grand jury and they'll get an indictment at some point, even if he's not found, is my point. So, I mean, listen, if he's found, they may take him into custody. They may have enough right now to take him into custody. Or they may just say, listen, we want to know your movements and we're looking at you as a suspect. I don't know what's going to happen exactly if he's found. But the point is this. Once the results of all the investigation that's being done and that's going to be being done going forward, they're going to come up with something that's going to put Brian into the trick bag, so to speak, for the murder. It's definitely a homicide, and he's going to wind up being responsible for it.
Joe Murray is stirring up the shit in the chat again. Here he is. Rebecca, he says, yes, you are correct. People get very emotional and assume facts that are not yet established. That's a defense attorney right there, but we love you anyway, Joe.
Yes. And listen, I get it. I am all for his legal aspect, his legal input on these type of things, because let's face it, if you don't have a Joe Murray, how are you going to get good at this stuff? This is what keeps you on your toes, and it makes you need to be challenged. And I love that part of it. That's why I always try to get people out of the comments, something worth saying. If somebody says something ridiculous, it's one thing, but those comments and questions are very valuable to what we're trying to do here.
And Phil, I've been accused of only reading the comments that are accompanied by a super chat, and that's not true. Today I read plenty of comments that weren't accompanied by a super chat. Joe, where as an attorney would you quit? Oh, I don't know what that was in reference to. 3-day camping trip with his parents while Gaby is dead in a field. They all need locking up now. Disgusting liars. That's from Emma Taylor. A lot of people are very emotional about this case, Yeah. Peter Pranzo, the great Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, Harlem Raiders fame, NYPD. Joe is right. No arrest warrant as yet. No, there is no arrest warrant as yet. But, Lieutenant Pranzo, I question, though, if the police find him right now, are they really just going to bring him home? I would find that very, very hard to believe.
My opinion, there's going to be something they're going to want to hold him on. I don't know exactly how they would handle it. I discussed it with Joe the other night. He kind of shot it down when I said either an unauthorized use of the vehicle or if he used a credit card of hers. Those were the first two things that popped in my head. Maybe they have something else up their sleeve. I don't want to get too far into it. But even if they find him and they bring him home, now we know where he is. Now there'll be a 24-hour track on his butt. And, then as they build the case, they may come up with an arrest warrant later. But either way, this whole thing it stinks rotten to the core for Brian and for his family.
Gemma Deacon, another great person from Great Britain. Hey guys, just wanted to say thanks for the great shows recently. You have found a new watcher in me across the pond in the UK. Thank you so much. And when you're at the pub in Great Britain and knocking down a Guinness or whatever you guys drink in Great Britain, let them know about Phil and I, the Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil show, and where every once in a while we drag a defense attorney on with us just to give the antagonistic opinion, But thank you so much, Gemma Deacon. We really appreciate that. Folks, there's another YouTube family member from across the pond, not the pound. And folks, if you like this show, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Ring that bell. We also have a YouTube membership for $2.99 a month. You're the bucket. For $9.99, you can polish my rack. For $24.99, you're dipped in butter. And the premier one, heated dipped in butter, is $49.99. Which we have one person that is heated dipped in butter. I love that guy. I don't know who he is. I can pull up his name. But thank you, guys. We really appreciate it. We're working really hard to bring you the best shows we can possibly deliver. Phil Grimaldi is a gem. I found him on the streets of Brooklyn. He was eating a veal cutlet sandwich. And, and he had some cannolis. And I said, hey, come over here. What do you know about Homicide? And he goes, oh, I used to be come here. And and he's been on the show ever since, And, we really enjoy doing this. And it's, believe it or not, it's hard work. It really is hard work to stay on top of all of this stuff. But it's so great because we almost feel like we're back on the NYPD.
Exactly.
And using our skills and our thoughts and our intuition and basically, reading you guys and reading the questions and understanding all this. And it's so great. Kristen Cure, another new member to the Police Off the Cuff family. Thank you so much. That's great. Whenever I see the green font, I know we got a new member in the Police Off the Cuff family. Phil, we've been going at it now for about an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 11 minutes. You want to start to wrap it up? You got some final thoughts?
Yeah. Just you were talking about that comment from the person across the pond in the UK. There was a person last night, late at night. I went through a lot of the comments, and I got a lot of wonderful happy birthday comments last night. I really appreciate it. I tried to answer as many as I could, and I think I went through quite a number of them. And but there was a woman by the name of Nicole Gaylor, Gayler, from Australia. So we got people from all over the globe plugged into this case, plugged into our show. We really appreciate it. She said you guys have a fan base in Australia. That I thought that was very nice. Again, we got some other great shows coming up. We're going to be doing an interview on Sunday evening about 6 p.m. of Jimmy Calandra, who is a member of organized crime. We did Sammy the Bull just recently, last Wednesday night, a week ago, getting a little perspective on the organized crime life. They call it being in the life. So we got a perspective from Sammy the Bull Gravano. It was actually a very, very good show. A lot of good information. We have Jimmy Calandra this week. Then we have another show sometime next week. I think it's the 28th, where we have the judge coming on, and
Judge Domingo from Hot Bench. She's from.
Yes, Judge Patricia Domingo from Hot Bench. She's also a native of Brooklyn. I know her from the area. So, we got some good things going on.
Folks, when people from Brooklyn see each other, they do this. That's how you know that they recognize each other. It's almost like, you ever see a Marine that sees another Marine that was like, hoorah! It's almost like that secret.
I just give her a, how you doing?
Oh, wait a minute, Phil, you're a Marine, right?
No. My dad was a Marine. My dad was a Marine.
Oh, you were never. I thought you were a Marine.
No. I have the Marine Corps flag behind me. It's a little higher than you can see, but that's from my dad. My dad was in World War II, Marine Corps. He actually was in the Tank Corps and did some jumping out of airplanes with parachutes and stuff. So both my grandfathers, actually, my father and both my grandfathers and several of my uncles were in World War I and World War II. So
that's fantastic. Marlena Cantu, thank you for the $5 super chat. Your question is, if parents are found guilty for aiding and abetting, will they be responsible for all the resources spent on this manhunt? I don't think they do that. They can be charged criminally. They certainly can be prosecuted. Could the penalty be a fine? Yeah, because I think they are people of means. I know they have a 10,000 square foot house, and I think they own a juice company. I think that's their business.
You know, Bill, if they can prove that they falsely reported an incident, if they reported him missing and they knew he was hiding and stuff like that, then there could be some culpability possibly for search stuff. I mean, I don't know if they're going to go that route, but there's culpability in these things. You got to really watch what you're doing and what you're saying, and you lie to the police, you're putting yourself in a trick bag down the line. Bottom line.
Diana Lynn Aguilu, I wish you would read this comment. I am. Your wish came true. Please, the neighbor said when he came home, everything was normal. And then one in a bike ride with his mother, and he mowed the lawn and helped his father like nothing happened. I saw that guy being interviewed. Yeah. He came home as if nothing was amiss, which, you could take a couple of different ways, but I believe he told his parents what happened. How could you not, like, oh, what happened to your fiance? Oh, she didn't want to come home. I don't think I would.
That's a bad look, Bill. That interview right there, that's a bad look for those people, that they were acting like nothing was wrong, knowing that the kid was missing. Terrible, terrible.
Tonight, the Night Owl. I love your comment. Phil reminds me in voice, accent, and looks of Jerry Lewis. That's a compliment. I say Joe Pesci, but
lady.
That's excellent.
First, okay.
That's excellent. Hush Puppies, South Africans also in the house. So welcome, Sylvia Maiko from Germany. Oh my God, you guys are from all over the world. We're so flattered that you're joining the Police Off the Cuff family. Juvie, new member. Wow, look at that. I love it. I love the new members. You guys are fantastic. And joining the Police Off the Cuff family. Tony Valente, I was just reading if I can find you again. To Joe Murray, it's already aiding and abetting for his mother, his father, and his sister that gave an interview on Good Morning America. Since Gaby lived at the house, it's also an accessory to murder one.
Accessory after the fact.
Yeah, potentially, but that it's a difficult thing to prove. And sometimes once they get the target of the investigation, they're not so inclined to pursue the peripheral people, that they're going to concentrate on who the main target is. I'm not saying they wouldn't do that, but they'll put most of their energy into prosecuting the main player in this case. Good evening from UK, Nottinghamshire. Wow, is that the forest where who is from Nottingham Forest? I forget.
Oh yeah. Robin Hood, something.
Robin Hood, that's right, Robin Hood. Dorothy Beveridge from Scotland. Oh my God, this is like incredible. Laura Morgan from the Netherlands.
I'm seeing Paul Laurie, New Zealand. Daisy Batista, Brazil. We're getting international people on the show. That's fantastic. Thank you so much to everybody that's
Lubbock, Texas. Wasn't that Buddy Holly was from Lubbock, Texas?
Sounds right.
Yeah, I think so.
I like this comment better. Phil reminds me of Al Pacino. That's better.
Cool. Mamie, Bill Cannon, are they using heat sensors and infrared to search for him at night? I hope they are. I hope they have the latest technology. That
I would think they are. That's
a lot of helicopters have those infrared sensors. I know the NYPD has them. Jesse J, Ireland in the house. I'm from Ireland. Many, I'm not original. My great grandparents were from Ireland, so we came over to the U.S. My great grandparents, but they were right. They were from Ireland. Joe Murray. Do we know Joe Murray? Joe Murray's from Queens, New York. That's not exotic at all. But you should be happy I just mentioned it, Joe Murray.
He's a good man, Joe Murray. He really is. I'm just so happy to be friends with him and spend time on the podcast with him. And he really gives us a great insight. And, not because he's a friend of mine and we do the commercial for him. You can see that he's a very capable attorney. He knows I'm going to say the word, he knows his shit in plain English, and he's a good guy. So if you have need for an attorney, he's the guy. I'll tell you, I would not think twice about enlisting his services if I was. And
you folks in the UK, he'll just fly over the ocean to represent you.
Sure. Especially if you take him out to a pub and give him a
That's right. That's right.
He's the man. But
he's going to be there. Shannon, Georgia Peach, you're Irish too. Great to hear that. Busy Mom, hello from Mexico. Do you think they will ever change the Tappan Zee Bridge back to? I hope so.
We're waiting on that. We're waiting.
I'm all in favor of that too. You know,
I believe
Colorado.
there's actually a petition going around to do that.
Colorado, hi from St. Thomas. Oh my God, you guys are from all over the world, folks. I think we're going to wrap it up. We've been on for almost an hour and 20 minutes. Hello from Morocco, New Mexico. Amazing. Any final words, Phil?
Yes, I know that we did have a little bit of fun. That's part of life. I mean, sometimes you just need to have a little levity sometimes, and I don't want people to think that in any way, shape, or form we're being disrespectful towards Gaby Petito or her family. Our hearts and prayers go out to them, and I implore people, if you are religious, say a prayer for them, because they're going through a very difficult time. I can't even imagine. And if you're not religious, just have a good thought for them. And we're going to stay on top of this. And like Bill said, we're into this. It's not about money or anything like that. It's about being connected to an investigation. These are the skills that we developed over many years in law enforcement. And it's a way to maybe give back and to explain to people. And it's actually enjoyable doing it, but it's a lot of work. Like Bill said, we're trying to catch the news all day long and then talk about it in the evening, and whatever happens going forward. One last thing I'd like to say is to Roberta Laundrie, your mom, Gaby's mom. Just think about Gaby's mom, what they're going through, that poor family right now, and do the right thing. I'm just gonna end with that.
Okay, Duty Ron, I saw you in the chat at the last minute. Duty Ron, thank you so much for everything that you do, not just for your channel, but for our channel. If it wasn't for Duty Ron, I would be in the basement of YouTube with 1,000 subscribers. He's helped me tremendously to build our channel with just advice, with promoting me, and I can't thank him enough. He's done amazing things for me. So, folks,
And
thank you so much.
Show too.
He's great. Folks, thank you so much for listening today. On behalf of Bill Cannon and Phil Grimaldi for Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories, thank you so much and have a great day.
Stay safe, everyone.